So I think it's time to get started. Here we go. And Jennifer, you were going to talk about the goals for this webinar a little bit more.
I am. So first of all, I want to invite all of you to think about this presentation on multiple levels. First of all, we're giving you information, but secondly, we'd like you to watch what we're doing in terms of sequencing, in terms of collaboration and co-facilitation. And what we know is it's so important to bring people into the virtual and remote space quickly. That's why we've invited you to let us know where you are from. Even on a webinar that is now 405 people, live, and then we expect, I think there are over 2,100 registrants.
Yeah.
So it's probably a good size of you listening on demand. And we want to make this as engaging as possible within this big space, because that's really what we need. Things that are memorable are engaging. So we want to help you create more engagement in any online experience, whether you're coaching, whether you're training, whether you're facilitating, you're going to find the ideas here are applicable. And we really want to provide you with tools and ideas to inspire you into action. And as I said at the start of the call, your next action could be like a minute after you hang up here on Zoom. So one of the most important things in this space is that we really feel connected. And so in this conversation, we're going to look at, how can you boost connection and how can you boost other elements so that people come online, and whether there's 400 plus people like us or just a handful, that people feel like they're here, they're part of the conversation in whatever sort of vehicles we have. And today we really just have chat and our Q&A. It's also important that we really get into process orientation. So do listen and watch, and we hope that you brought a pen with you, because we will take you through a number of exercises. So several years ago, as you heard from Emma-Louise, back in 2017, I wrote and released Effective Virtual Conversations, not knowing that last year, 2020, 3 billion people went digital almost overnight. And as a researcher and a practitioner in this space for 3 decades now, we've always known that key to the conversation is trust, connection, and also safety. I'm sure you've been on multiple webinars talking about psychological safety and the importance of that, as is developing trust and also developing connection. So we're going to see multiple ways in our time to boost that connection, but right now we're going to dive into this notion of trust. I don't know about you, Emma-Louise, but certainly in my work with organizations, one of the number one questions is, how do we build trust? And especially, how do we build trust in the virtual or online space? So what we'd love to do is really crowdsource our community here today and get you to share one practical idea or tip on how you boost trust and connection in this virtual or online space. Let us know the small or big things that you do in chat, because what we know is that trust is additive. Stephen Covey Jr., so Stephen Covey's son, wrote a book almost 2 decades ago now called The Speed of Trust. And what I love about that book, and I've referenced it and given multiple copies actually to my coaching clients over the years, it really gets very granular and behavioral around what builds trust. One of the things that we've all seen and experienced in the last 15 months is we don't get to see each other the same way. And so our presence, the way we show up, these micro elements become magnified. And just as trust can be built additively upwards, it can also be decimated very, very quickly. So
there are some incredible, just wanted to let you know there's some incredible responses in the chat here. So I hope you're all making notes from all the suggestions in chat.
Yeah, and I was just going to draw our attention to there, because it really is when we have the trust and the connection that we're able to actually have the coaching conversations that are needed, right? Coaching is a deeper conversation. It is a conversation with intent, but it's getting into the layers of things like beliefs and values. It's getting into assumptions we're making and perspectives. And in a group, individual, or team environment, these are not easy conversations to get into. So we need to make sure that we're really building that trust. And as you can see, Georgina has just put, build confidence with your group, right? Trust is a two-way street. And so we really need to model it and invite people into the conversation. So thank you. Small but great ideas. And remember, it's these additive steps that really add up over time. What else would you like to say, Emma-Louise, as we look at this?
I can't, I'm just blown away by all the amazing tips and things. I'm thinking maybe we need to grab the chat. If we remember, we'll grab the chat and maybe even put them all in a little article there, because there's some great tips on building trust. And actually one of them, Louisa said, and I have to remember to do a little bit more, look at the camera when we're talking. That's something I'm still working at getting better at. I've actually got, I'm going to show you here. I've got a little thing. This is to remind me to look at the camera. It's from a presentation I did, and I put it above the camera there to draw my eye and remember to look at the camera. So I think we're ready to move into icebreakers. Jennifer, what about you?
I think that sounds great. And again, thank you. And a reminder that you should be able to save your chat at the end of this presentation as well.
So everyone can do it. It's not just, we don't just have to do it. Everyone can save their own chat. So I recommend that you save the chat. You could probably save it multiple times as well, just to make sure you don't miss anything.
And just so we're not making any assumptions, because that's like the kiss of death in the virtual space, I'm just going to walk through how you do that, because I know no doubt someone is like, how do we do it? You see, it's already coming up. Nope, we can't. So if we can, right? This is common, and we just don't know every time. So the feature can be turned off. What we're going to do is make sure we save it on this end. But if you're wanting to do it on other calls, what you will see if it's activated is in the chat bar on the upper right side, you're going to see 3 little dots, right? 3 dots, which you can click on. This is in the chat window, which if you click on it, it's going to say save chat. And then you can save it. It will show up after your call where your Zoom recordings just get. And there's been a great suggestion, Control-C plus Control-V, to just copy and paste the chat, which might get a little long as we go into a 90-minute call.
I mean, Michaela can hear us. Michaela, you can maybe have a little look in the back end and see if you can enable that if you get a moment, but we'll save it if we can't.
Yeah, and I think it's probably safer. I'm just going to say this, Emma-Louise, because a lot of people want us to do things on the fly, but you know what? It's not safe to do that, right? If you have 400 people online, better to say, you know what, we're going to send it out, and don't try to do it on the fly, because that's what happens. You can cut off everyone, and that would be game over. Definitely not engaging.
Okay, that's a good point. Okay, so example icebreakers. So as we head into part 1 of the main webinar, I'd like you to watch for the quick engagement exercises that Jennifer and I have interspersed throughout the webinar. So one of them was that zesty way where we add a little bit of humor. So watch for the little quick engagement exercises throughout the webinar. And the goal of icebreakers is to help our attendees get comfortable with each other and to build that trust. It is one of the ways we build trust and comfort. And this still applies to larger webinars like this. Having an icebreaker creates a sense of belonging and community. And hopefully we've already done that a little bit through the chat. So I am going to hand over to Jennifer for our first icebreaker exercise.
Fantastic. So this one, you're going to need a pen and a piece of paper or a device. I'm going to get Emma-Louise to turn to the next slide. And what I'd like you to do as we go to the next slide, you're going to see a series of journaling prompts. So part of coaching these days is not only about speeding people into action, it's always been about also applying the brakes. And certainly what we know 15 months into a pandemic, it's really important that we take time to pause. So I wanted to give you a moment, because my guess is whether you're morning or evening, that you probably have been running since you got up. It's not only that many of us are working, we may have children, we may have elderly parents that we support, like myself. It very much is a whirlwind. In the new ICF coaching competencies, there is enhanced emphasis on creating reflective practice. And creating reflective practice is not just for the coach to look at what's happening, it's also about creating a reflective practice and pause for our clients. So my invitation right now is to pick one of these journaling prompts. And I'd like to just give you 60 seconds right now for you to write out what gets activated. Just let your mind go, no pressure, but I'd like you to just zoom into one of these prompts. I'm personally going to zoom into in the next 24 hours, and I'm going to set a timer in 60 seconds. We'll come back and you'll actually have something that you can physically leave the call with. All right, 60 seconds starts now. Pick one of these prompts and just allow yourself to free write whatever comes to mind. Enjoy. And wherever you are, I'll just invite you to pause. And we're not quite done yet, right? If we were using this with a individual coaching conversation, a group or a team coaching conversation, we'd be able to continue the conversation. But we're alone in our own areas. So what I'd like you to do just for a minute before I talk about the process behind journaling, I'd like you to metaphorically either jump in your helicopter or go to that mountaintop. And as you look back at whatever words or sentences or even images that have come up for you, I want you to highlight anything of significance. I'm going to just give you another 20 seconds to just notice what got activated for you with the journaling prompt that you chose. Okay, so I've got Emma-Louise here. We want to sort of do a back and forth. Emma-Louise, what was that experience like for you today?
I found it very calming, actually, because we had all that thing with the chat and my brain was going crazy. And I found that a very grounding experience. I found it calming. And yeah, and I chose the what if there were no limits? I love that. So yeah. What about you?
I chose what's possible, right? And many, if you were here, I think in the fall, I spoke on group coaching, which is really my main area. And I think I was sharing, the power of our positive and open-ended questions. I really love the research and work of Richard Boyatzis and his team, which actually have taken questions like what's possible, and they've studied in terms of what happens to our clients' brains when we ask questions like that. And as you might know, but I'm going to share it if you haven't heard of this, questions like what's possible, or if you were to win $50 million, questions like that activate a part of our brain, a series of parts of our brain known as a positive emotional attractor network. And that literally opens up the brain for possibility. Certainly, as we are, at different places in different parts of the world right now, some places have reopened. Some places like me in Toronto, we are still under lockdown. Many of our colleagues here in Europe as well are in different phases. But we need to keep asking what's possible. And that's a really key part of the coaching process. So regardless of what journaling prompt you picked, I hope that you too found this grounding or perhaps insightful. For some, it might have been like, oh, come on, can't we do something? Just remember that coaching is not always just about doing. It's also about being. As someone who is a type A personality and I love to run, one of my biggest learnings as a coach over the years has been we've got to apply the brakes. We need to slow down in order to speed up.
Yeah.
Over to you, Emma-Louise, with any final comments on this. Anything else you want to mention?
I'm good, actually, Jennifer, and I want to make sure we stay on time. So that was one of the things Jennifer and I did. We did a very detailed time thing. So that's another thing for your online groups and webinars actually, is to break it down and make sure you stay on time and know what you can cut and what you don't want to cut if you're going to be doing a webinar. So there was a little mini engagement exercise that I'm going to skip over here, and I'm going to go straight to this one. We're going to go to an inspirational pause. So this is Zesty Way number 8, using inspirational images. Now I chose this one. I saw it and my mind just grabbed it. I know it's not inspirational in waterfalls and mountains and sunsets, but we've all been stuck inside and at home. When did we last travel and have a cocktail, virgin or alcoholic, on the beach? I'd love you to share 2 feelings that come up for you when you look at this image in the chat box.
Take a look at what your colleagues are saying.
Oh, envy, calm, thirsty. Yes, and even, it's funny, I notice even reading, getting relaxed, happy and relaxed, peace, warmth, tranquilizing, refreshing, anticipation, serenity. Just reading all those words is calming me. I don't know about you. Does anyone else feel that this is a plastic straw? Grr. Let's pretend it's a reusable plastic straw.
Yeah, maybe it's a bit
fun. Okay. Bliss. Oh yes. We are all needing some beach time, some sunshine. Okay.
So let's
Thank
begin,
you.
right? Part of this presentation, we're on icebreakers, right? So this is meant to just be a quick refresh, right? We all want to know what happens in the arc of a call and what can you do maybe by visuals or other. And that's going to be a nice segue into us getting you to choose one of these 9 images. Maybe you need a refresh. Maybe you need a focus. I'd like you to zoom in, and maybe you physically zoom in by leaning into your computer. Which image speaks to you right now? Okay, which one of these is calling you in terms of maybe what your focus is or where you want your focus to be? So I would like you to take just 1 minute by sharing with us as you are, pick an image, and also think about what the significance is of that image for you. In other words, what does that image represent about what's possible? Let's use that word again. What's possible for you? So if you grab the balloons or you grab the lighthouse, what's possible?
Yeah, it's lovely actually, because some people are typing in what they've chosen, and other people are also saying, you know, the tent, freedom, balloons, joy, happiness, floating, lighthearted, tent on the beach, adventure. So what I'm noticing is a lot of values popping up in here. Travel, well, it's not a value, but just learning.
Yeah.
I'm just looking here. Which one is balloons is coming up a lot. Yeah, it's colorful, attractive. Freedom, steady guidance, lighthouse, camping. The balloons, I'll let them take me wherever the wind's blowing. There's some wonderful answers here. So this is a great example, Jennifer, of how to get engagement with your audience, how to get people excited and involved in the presentation. And it's so simple.
It's so simple. Made in Canva using image stock from Pixabay and Unsplash. I'll put those in the chat. Well, I think we're going to segue to you in just a minute.
Well, there we go. So time for a little chuckle. This is one of my favorite cartoons. I don't know, does it make anyone else laugh? It always makes me chuckle a little bit. Poor little donut. So I think the next thing is, that was just a little laughter break there. The next thing is, Jennifer, we're going to demonstrate a poll.
Yeah, we've got a poll. So I think Michaela is going to activate this poll for us, correct? And
yes, she is.
we're going to find out from you, what's your favorite engagement tool for online groups? So you have a choice with polls, whiteboard, chat, annotate, and breakout groups. And these are really our top 5. As you heard, I have a new book coming out, which is called Reconnecting Workspaces. But for the last decade plus, I've trained thousands of people in online engagement. And really, when we boil most of it down, these are the 5 levers, the 5 engagement levers that we have. We'd love to hear from you in terms of what or which one is your favorite engagement tool for online groups. Maybe this is your go-to. Maybe this is the one that you find easiest. I can't wait to see what comes up.
Okay, we'll give you another 10 seconds.
Let's see, we've got 400 and some of you are saying I haven't tried 4 of them. Chat is easiest. Yeah.
So Michaela, maybe you could share the results now. That would be great. Aha. Oh, there we go. Ah.
Look at that, breakout time. I'm going to read this because this will not be shared visually in the recording. So really important that you read out the results. Number one was breakout groups at 48%, followed by chat at 21%, then polls at 20%, whiteboard at 6%, and my favorite, annotate, at 4%. So,
your favorite is annotate.
Sorry, say that again, Emily.
No, I was just surprised. Your favorite is annotate. Yeah.
Well, I think, if we really look at sort of different platforms as well, not every platform has annotate activated, and it is a little bit more complex. Look at Allison. Allison saying, I don't know how to do annotate.
Well, I'm going to have a stab at that later. It's hard to do on the webinar. We're going to just try it to show you a little bit about what's possible later on. So that will be demoed. And breakout groups. That's not surprising with a group of coaches that we like breakout groups. So I'm going to close that now. Hopefully that disappears. And we're going to move onwards.
Yes.
So Jennifer, you were going to talk a little bit about core exercises just to lead us into this section.
Absolutely. So we're leaving, the terrain of quick, short things that we can have in our back pocket into what often becomes the backbone or the skeleton of a coaching conversation, or even any online conversation. So we're going to share with you just a micro handful of many of the longer core exercises. What I'd encourage you to think about is really what makes coaching coaching. And as you look at these, some of them might feel, well, that's more like training. But as coaches, we're always putting emphasis on goals, on action, awareness, and accountability. So that's our framing. Emma-Louise is going to lead us through the first core exercise. And I think, again, you'll want that pen, piece of paper, or other digital device to take some notes. So over to you, Emma-Louise.
Okay, actually, Jennifer, the next one is the grounding exercise. So this is Zesty Way number 1, which is a little bit of grounding, and Zesty Way number 4, a little bit of stress relief, which I think we could all do with. So I think for the rest of the exercises, we want pen and paper. For this one, we just need you and your body. So this short do anywhere breathing ritual will help you slow down, de-stress, and come home to yourself anytime you need to. So it doesn't have to be this one. I'm just sharing one example of a grounding exercise. And even something as simple as encouraging people to take 3 deep breaths into their tummy, that can be a powerful way of grounding your audience and getting them more connected to themselves and less in their heads, and more likely to kind of have those aha moments and that genuine self-connection, which is so important to growth. So visualizations are a great way to get people just away from the screen and just slowing down, which we know is really important. And I'm going to go into it now for you. So this is a simple ritual just to help us step briefly out of the busyness of life and reconnect with ourselves. And it's also a life-changing habit that calms and gives us strength. So you may notice I've already slowed down my voice a little. I've gone a little bit quieter. And I'm going to invite you now to take a deep breath in, and perhaps you can begin to close your eyes. I'd like you to ensure that you're sitting upright and your feet are flat on the floor. I'd like you to take your first deep breath in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. I'd like you to relax those shoulders, loosen your jaw perhaps, moving it gently from side to side if you need to. That's your jaw and your shoulders. And now I'd like you to take a second deep breath in through your nose. And as you breathe out slowly through your mouth, I'd like you to imagine your energy gradually sinking down to your feet. The floor is solid underneath your feet. Your feet feel heavy. And on your next breath in, I'd like you to imagine again, that your energy is sinking down from your head right down to your feet. And this time, as you breathe in again, as you breathe out, imagine that your feet are sending roots deep down into the earth. You feel grounded, safe, solid. You are now deeply connected to the earth and its rich, powerful energy. And as you continue to send roots into the earth, your presence continues to solidify, and you feel deeply connected to yourself and your body. Take another breath in, and this time, imagine being your favorite kind of tree. Imagine yourself thriving and flourishing with your roots deep in the soil beneath your feet. And as you breathe in again, notice how much calmer you are. And I'd love for you to enjoy this feeling of deep calm and self-connection for just one more breath. And now slowly begin to open your eyes and return to your day and this webinar.
Thank you, Emma-Louise. So lovely.
So that visualization took just over 2 minutes. And I'm wondering how much calmer and connected you feel. Just type in the chat how you're feeling now. Yeah, I really needed that. Love the picture, beautiful. And you can do that too. It's easy to do. It's good to learn to slow down. I mean, I think I could have gone slower and given you a little bit more space, but I want to keep us on time here. So you'd be surprised how much people need that. And I'm just seeing they're relaxed, calming, lovely. So doing a grounding exercise or visualization this way is a really great way to get people to slow down, get them connected to themselves and ready to work on themselves with you. So it's a great engagement tool. Yeah, and I just also want to say I should have turned off my phone. I was distracted. And thank you for your honesty. And that's a powerful thing because we didn't ask people to turn off their phones at the beginning, did we, Jennifer? So anyway, that's a good learning for us there. Do we want to do the quick engagement, Jennifer, or do we want to skip over that one?
I think we can skip over it because we've just done a pulse check, right? With any of these exercises, you want to do a pulse check, but we really noticed in the chat what people, enjoyed, how they're feeling, etc. So please feel free. Remember, we'll take questions towards the end, but I think some people might have some questions around visualizations, which are a really powerful tool.
Yeah.
So do you want to take any questions, Emma, or shall we leave them to the end?
I think we'll just wait so we can keep on time here. So I'm going to move you into your 6 layers of connection in virtual conversations.
Yeah, 6 layers of connection. So one of the things that we've seen, on a human level, on a research level, is people are hungry for connection. And as places and workspaces reopen, this is where, people are running to reconnect. So we can connect still in the virtual, hybrid, and online space on many ways. And we hope that in today's presentation, you're thinking about the different layers of connection that exists in a conversation. I only have a few minutes to talk about this here, but as you heard, I'm a podcast co-host. And a few weeks ago, we did a special episode at the Remote Pathways podcast on the 6 layers of connection. You can check that out at remotepathways.com. And really, in any virtual, hybrid, or remote conversation, we want to connect people not only to you and each other, but to the topic. So think about what we did today, not only bringing you into the room, but getting you to think about your goals and how you might be applying this, because experiential means that it's about education based in experience. And I actually just want to share just a quick quote from John Dewey. And John Dewey is often seen as sort of one of the founders of the experiential education movement. He wrote, "We don't learn just from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience." And if you think about our presentation today, think about these micro pauses, because in connecting, it's not just connecting with each other, it's about connecting to the topic. It's about connecting to the content. It's about connecting to the platform and figuring out, what do I do to use the tools? Oops, chat isn't available right now, even though it was available last hour. And we also want to make sure that we are connecting into what is happening outside of the screen. So we've got a short exercise for you to engage with us on this next one, which is, what's outside your window? And this is covered in the Zesty Way article. It's number 7, which allows for us to create a deeper connection with each other, but also the natural world. So I want you to take a moment to actually practice what we're now calling the 20-20-20 rule to virtual rest, which is take 20 seconds right now to turn your eyes away from the computer. Look out your window, or perhaps the door 20 feet down the way. It's going to rest your eyes, number one, but 2, it's going to reconnect you with this world outside of Zoom. So our simple question today is, what's outside your window? And given that we've got people from all over the world, I am so curious to hear, what's outside your window? Here at my neighborhood, there are kids playing in the park across the street. It's like 80 degrees, or just about 28 Celsius, which is beautiful in Toronto. And also, we've just had a garbage truck roll by. So that's what's been happening. What about you, Emma-Louise? What's outside your window?
Well, we did actually say, because this is in a smaller group where everyone's visible, we can actually get our cameras, and this is something you said we can get people to do. So I'm going to share the view outside my window. Let's see, there we go. What can we see here? So that's my house down there, and that's my garden, and it's sunny. You can see my greenhouse just off to the right behind my house there. Yeah, so it's a sunny, gorgeous day. And I think you said that was also a great way to add personal context, Jennifer, was to allow, when people, there's Jennifer's window.
So the green bins, the blue bins.
Yeah. Oh,
with lots of
So it's a great way as well of creating that deeper connection, is to add some personal context. I'm seeing courtyard garden and cactus. It's raining, the sea, concrete jungle of balconies. Yeah.
Different spaces, right? But this is what we bring to a conversation. And part of our work as coaches is to also understand the context and fabric of our clients' world. So how are you widening the lens? What are you doing to create deeper connection with your own clients and between clients if you are working with groups and teams? So a couple of other ideas. Yes, as Emma-Louise said, we can also make sure that we're doing virtual tours, right? Maybe you take people on a tour, or perhaps show them something inspirational. I wish I'd had my camera with me about an hour ago. I was having lunch with my son, who is in the 10th grade, and every day since the pandemic started, when he's been doing virtual schooling, we try to come together for lunch. So he had a grilled cheese. I didn't eat before this presentation, but what was so cute was there was this baby bunny jumping through our backyard. So we usually see the mom, but we saw the baby bunny. And, even as a 16-year-old, he still thought that was sort of cool. And I thought, oh, yeah, nice, spring is here. So think about Zesty number 7. What can you do to create deeper connection? And notice some more suggestions coming up in the chat. Thank you so much for that.
Actually, Jennifer, I did notice someone raise a very good point, which is just to be aware that if we have groups with different countries and thinking about inequality levels, that someone may not have such a beautiful view out of their window as I am lucky to have. So I do know that one of your suggestions was for people to share an item on their desktop that they find inspiring. So I was just going to share that. I have this was given to me by a friend. I have a little painting when I was having some troubles with my womb. I don't know. Anyway, she gave me that picture, and I just find that. So we can also share something on our desk. It doesn't have to be a view out of the window, something you find inspirational. And that was,
many of you know that I worked globally for many years, right? And certainly, so this plant here is one that comes from the Caribbean, where I was based and my husband is from. Certainly, you know, I think so much of this is bringing in the shared and different experience in terms of how can we learn and how can we also grow together. And that's really the big part of our work as group and team coaches. It's looking at what is the common ground, as well as what is unique and distinct and so special for all of us. So deeper connection, as well as differences.
Yeah, and personal context.
Yes, absolutely. And as we're segueing, let's go to the inspirational pause, and then I'll answer the 20-20-20 question. There we go.
Okay. So this is about, this is another inspirational pause. I love this image, so colorful. So just to share one word that describes how you feel as you look at this image in the chat box. In fact, I'm going to switch it back to that exercise we skipped over. I said one word, but the exercise we skipped over, which a lot of people asked about, was to share an emoticon if you can, and if not, to share a word. Because the emoticon's fun. So there we go. We got a big grin. And if you don't have access to emoticons, you can just share a word there. But that was what we skipped over. So yeah, look at that. Uplifted, bright, excited, colorful, jigsaw, light, joy. Oh yeah. Now we're getting some emoticons. Love it. Oh yes. I really love emoticons. I've really got into them.
And again,
okay, elated, uplifted, pow. Oh, what's that one? They're all zooming up the screen. So you all get to see what each other are putting there. So,
and one thing I'd reference too, again, to working with a global audience is where possible, you'll want to include something where if we all have different first languages, that's where emoticons and emojis
you
know, it becomes a way that we can all communicate regardless of our literacy levels or regardless of how, you know, what language, what is our first, second, third, or even fourth or fifth language that we're working within as well. So
wonderful. Okay, so after that inspirational pause, we're going to go into one of our core exercises. This is one of my favorite exercises, one of my absolute favorites. And it really helps people boost their energy, helping with balance and self-care. It can also be used to mine for values. And it's great to give any client a boost and a pause for thought. Now, I will talk a little bit about how you can use this in your smaller groups afterwards. But of course, when we're doing a webinar, we can't put you into breakouts, but we're going to do this exercise through chat again. So in a minute, I'm going to ask you to type what makes your heart sing into the chat, but hold off. This is about feeling light, happy, joyful, and carefree. And to give you some examples here, I animated this slide. So that was something else I did. I learned how to animate slides. Your answers could be anything from watching dogs and children playing, hiking a mountain, something where you get to tell someone you love them, fresh sheets on the bed. So I'm talking about these things where you just feel light, joyful. And if it helps, think back to your childhood. And then the last tip is that if it seems overly simple, if your answer seems really simple, that's a good sign. So now I would love you to type into the chat what makes your heart sing. And while you're doing that, we were going to try annotation here. Jennifer, I was going to ask you to read out some of those things. And this is one-way annotation. This is me annotating. I'm going to type some things on our screen here.
Yes, so smelling lilac, hiking, nature, feeling the sun on my face. Someone also said rain, camping, dancing, puppies.
I love puppies. Puppies and kittens. I'm going to put kittens on there.
Biking. There's another one, sun on my skin, singing, my kids' hugs, gratitude, music, dancing, birds singing. I'm going to
try and do them. I'm learning as I do this, by the way. I'm going to slow down a little bit. I'm changing the color of the text here just to make it a bit more interesting. Sunshine comes up a lot.
Hiking is there again, the beach, the had camping earlier, helping others learn and grow. So someone's asked, yeah, we'll go to how she's doing this in just a minute. Grandchildren, swimming in warm water. And what Emma-Louise is using right now is Annotate. We'll talk more about using it. Coaching youth in sport. People watching.
Yeah, people.
Smiling at grumpy people.
Ooh, I like that
in
one.
a lake. Airport arrival areas. I love that. Cooking and baking. Running, smiles. This reminds me of a book I used to have as a teenager called, I think it was 500 Things to Be Happy About, right? And it just makes us all get really happy when we see these.
So I'm using something called Annotate. It's a Zoom option. You choose Annotate and it gives you this menu. And so I'm going to draw here for a second. Let me see if I can draw. I'm going to choose. So we can also do a little face. I'm not very good drawing here. Oh, the sunshine. So we had the sunshine come up a lot. And actually, when you're not doing a webinar, you can actually allow other people to annotate as well. So it wouldn't be just me annotating. You can have the members of your group annotating. There's also that's draw. I was using text. Oh, someone was putting hearts on things.
That was me. I put my hearts beside the ones that I love just to be active.
So it's a little challenging, obviously, if you're typing in, if I'm trying to type in everyone's answers here, but it gives you an idea of what's possible. And especially when your group members can come in and type things. Of course, another way to do this would be to do it analog, and you could have a flip chart behind you and write on that. Just make sure that's visible. And Mandy, you do need to use Zoom webinars to annotate. I don't know if is it available in meetings, Jennifer?
Yeah, so Mandy was just asking that. I believe you need to have the pro account, and you also need to activate it in your Zoom account settings. So definitely go, and when I say activate it in Zoom account, you're going to go to your zoom.us, log in with your login information, and then you'll see the different settings for things like annotate, polling, and some of these other areas. So definitely check it out.
There's another one.
Member, just know that there's an ICF global member benefit for Zoom. You'll find it at their member benefits page.
So just to wrap up this exercise here, I'm wondering if you can type what you notice about people's answers in the chat. As you look at those answers on the screen, what do you notice? Give people a pause here. They're short. Nature, free, organic, positive. VAK, which is the visual, auditory, kinesthetic. So using our senses. Positive, non-work, engagement, movie, happy movement, happy vibes. Zoom isn't on the list. It's the simple things. So when we do this in a group, what I will do is I will find it anyway. We'll come back to that. You've already said the things that I really want to highlight here, which is the things on this list are free and they're easy to do. So if the things on our list are often cheap and free or easy to do, why is it that we don't do more of these things in our lives? If this is what makes our hearts sing and they're free and easy to do, why don't we do more of them? So that's the question I will leave you with. When you do this in a group with people, I usually put people into groups of 3 or 4 to answer this question together and brainstorm ideas. Then I ask them to get one person to come back to the group and share. And then I usually ask people to make their own list. So having discussed and heard other people's groups, then I get people to write this list and do their own list. And then what I do is I ask people to identify one action that they will take away and do by the end of the week, because of course it wouldn't be coaching if we didn't have some action. So if you have an action in mind, I wonder if you could just stick that in the chat just before we move on to our next exercise. Is there one thing, as you look at that list, that you will commit to do by the end of this week? I'm going to type in hike a mountain. Hike a mountain. It's a small mountain. Good trail. I will smile at a grumpy person. That one just Not always guaranteed to make a grumpy person happier, but it makes you happy. So there's a funny quote about something about being happy because it annoys enough people to make it worth the effort. Yeah, we got some great things. Play the guitar, go canoeing, take an online Zumba class, try a new recipe, cut the grass, get your sun on your skin. So wonderful. I think we are ready to move on to our next exercise, Jennifer.
Sounds good. And just a reminder, you want to clear the screen. So if you don't clear the screen, like what we've just had happen here, you need to annotate and actually clear all drawings. So thank you. It's a good learning, right? Other quick way to come out of that is, of course, to stop your share, go back into gallery view, and then share again, and the annotation will not follow you. So excellent, amazing, right? And one thing that we hope to do in today's session is give you just really like that sort of like half a dozen or more quick things that you can be doing. Now, of course, we're abridging, shortening the conversation. You would never have more than one or two of these in a group or individual or even team coaching conversation. But we really wanted to provide that landscape. And as we were thinking about this, you know, Emma-Louise was like, yeah, like what are the things that we regularly do? And we do want people's heart to sing. We also often will take anyone, whether it's on a personal level or a professional level, into the landscape of vision. So vision, regardless of what coaching methodology we're using, is often one of the main initial tools that we learn as a coach. And I know that I did an article recently, actually, I think one of my recent articles, right, Emma-Louise, was on 2 ways for leaders to work with vision. Because part of vision, as I was sharing back in the fall, you know, in times of change, in times of transition, vision becomes such an important thing to look out at the horizon, just like these words. Vision is what has kept a lot of organizations, leaders, and families going in the disruption and the challenges and the trials and tribulations that so many have faced around the world. I think we've all been touched on multiple levels. Personally, you know, I think of my family and just what it's meant with sickness and with, you know, care for the elderly that has not been as normal times. So vision, reconnecting with our vision and holding on to that in terms of like what's important to us can be so important. As coaches, it's often what we activate, and we activate the conversation for, even when things are very disrupted. So I'd like you to think about first, before we go into a short exercise, I'd like you to share with us and others, what are the things you're doing as a coach to work with clients? Are you doing visualizations? Are you getting people to do a vision board? Are you writing out a vision story? We'd love to hear from you. What are the different ways you do work or you can work with vision? And why I think, again, this will be important is we're often, like I think many of us will be moving into transition phases soon, if not already in that. So notice vision board workshops. What else do we have? Imagine print success stories, visualizations and mind maps, co-creating narrative, writing a letter from the future. Yes, Lori, thank you for that one. Life timeline. Yes, you know, your lifetime story, your team story, vision boards, working with adult learners. So, you know, again, I've only ever worked with adult learners. I bring in almost every one of the tools that I've shared here, actually all of the tools that I've shared here, to the organizations that I work with, from healthcare to safety, from education to financial services. So much of the work and how it's embraced, I think, is about positioning. It's about languaging, and it's also about how confident are we in showing up and having the conversations. We've got to listen to our clients all the time. And so really think about, what is your vision story? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to icons. And remember, I said icons are a great way to really create learning, especially when we're in a multicultural, multilingual environment. So what I'd like you to do for the next minute is take a look at these icons. And as you think about where you'd like to be 6, 12 months from now, or even 3 years from now, what are the 3 icons you choose for your vision story? Maybe it's one of these. Maybe it's something a bit different, but again, I'm going to give you a minute of silence to note down your top 3 icons that really embrace or encapsulate what your vision is for your work as a coach. Take a minute. You can put that in chat, or you can put that on your piece of paper. Again, this is something we're hoping you will leave the conversation with. I'll start my timer now. 60 seconds. Just wrap that up with 10 more seconds. Wherever you are is good. This may be one thing that you do remember because it's a little different than some of the other things we've done.
This actually reminds me, Jennifer, when I do retreats, I will often bring in a selection of items, and it'll be everything from natural things like a leaf and then a key, and we'll have and everyone gets to choose an item, and then they just instinctively, and then they talk about what it was that made them choose that item. And it's similar. It's just doing that. This is the online version of doing that. And it's actually a very powerful exercise when you start to think about why you picked what you chose. A lot of people chose the rocket, I noticed. And I actually picked the scales, but I noticed quite a few other people put the scales as well. So it's interesting how there are these themes and patterns as well with what people choose.
And it's those themes and patterns that we start digging into. You know, if we're working with a team, you're asking a team, what do you notice about the common themes or icons that showed up within this team? And that becomes really the conversation going forward, because in team coaching, we're always looking at the alignment of it all. When I wrote From One to Many Best Practices for Team and Group Coaching back in 2013, you know, team coaching was not on a radar like it is today. So many thousands of coaches have really embraced team coaching. I think it's really important that we look beyond just conversation, because like everyone in this room is demonstrating, there are so many different doorways into activating insight and learning and sharing. So one thing we could have done, if this was a team, everyone could have chosen icons, then we could have a separate whiteboard where we would look to actually, as a team, have them put it together as a combination. We could do that verbally, but we could also do that visually. And, you know, there's a whole growing body of science behind visual learning, visual facilitation. I'm sure many others on this call, like myself, are certified in numerous methodologies because it's a different doorway into insight and learning. So I'd like to invite you after today, take these icons with you. If you do make journaling a regular practice, maybe journal on them, or even just tuck them away and notice when these things start showing up in your world. Anything else you want to mention, Emma-Louise?
No, just that this is a great exercise to connect you to yourself, to go deeper, to find those similarities between people. I mean, there's so many applications for this very simple exercise, and I love it.
Yeah. So a couple questions before we leave off. Just where do you get things like this? This is where having, you know, a commercial license for things like Adobe Stock becomes really, really useful. Or you can, you know, get a flat icon. So flat icon is another commercial design entity, flat icon. A third one would be, you know, you could go out and ask a designer to design something like this for you. I've
also just put one in the chat, which is Font Awesome. I think it's fontawesome.com, but if you search for Font Awesome, there are a lot of Font Awesome is a lot of icons. It's an icon font, so there's tons of icons that you can use, and I think there's a free way of using it, and then a fairly cheap way of like an annual license of like 70, 80 bucks. Okay, right. So
over to you.
Over to me. Wheel of stress relief. Who needs some stress relief right now? Maybe, hopefully not too much if you're on our webinar, but we are packing a lot in. So here what I'm doing, I'm sharing a blank wheel of life on the screen. And what I'd like you to do actually is to grab a pen and paper. And I'm sure this is the wheel of life. So coaches, you all know how this goes. I'd like you to draw a circle and divide it into 4, and then halve that and divide it into 8. So this is how you can do the wheel of life in a group or online. You can also send them a tool beforehand, but you don't need to. You just need to get a piece of paper, draw it. It doesn't even need to be a well-drawn circle. Just divide it into 8 as it is on the screen. Okay, here's my animation and it's working. I'd like you to write on the wheel the 8 things that are most adding stress in your life right now, and put one against each segment. You'll see there's a sort of ring around the outside. If you like, you can turn your piece of paper around and write one in each of the colored ring around the outside. So what are the 8 things that are adding to your stress right now? Anything at all, whatever pops into your mind. And a good way of getting the timing right on this, if you're feeling confident, and is to do it yourself, because that way you get a sense of how long it's taking, so you don't rush people. So, what do you notice as you look at your wheel and the topics that you've chosen? And you can type that in the chat if you like. What do you notice as you look at it? Because I know what I notice, and this is another thing you can do to get the conversation going a little bit, is to share a little bit personally. So I notice a lot of them are really small. The pandemic is obviously on there. I think everyone would probably have the pandemic on there, and maybe not. Maybe you've got to a place where you're coping. So I've got things like my dog, my old dog, my stepdaughter who just left and gone back to England. I'm missing her. Doing this webinar, it still adds a little bit of stress, however much we enjoy it. Yeah, exercise. I'm getting stronger again because of my knee. I had some knee surgery. People have got lack of time. I don't have 8 things that stress me out, which is good. Mask wearing because it's mega hot. Doing a PhD course. So in a group with more time, you could actually put people into breakouts to help decide on those 8 things, because it's good when we can come up with the 8 things. Sometimes there's something niggling away and stressing us out, which we don't even really realize until someone else says it. So I love with this exercise to send people into groups to do what the things stressing them out are. So now what I'd like you to do is to score each of those items out of 10. So with a group who hasn't done this before with clients, you'll need to explain this, that 0 is where there's no stress, and 10 is obviously where there's a lot of stress, and to draw it like a pie chart. So if you could all do that. Yeah, using Zoom is stressful. I think I've seen someone write that down. And just to score each one out of 10. And you can also hold it up. If you need to, you can hold up your own. So this is you can sort of show an example of how people would score out of 10. So you're doing this with your groups online. Put them into breakouts, get them discussing what the 8 stressful things are, and then bring them back and get one person to share the common themes that they noticed amongst each other. And I'm going to ask you now to choose one action, one stressful item that you're going to put an action around, and put that action in the chat, what you're going to do. I'm going to put mine in there. Actually, mine is the same as my heart sing item from earlier. I'm going to hike a mountain. Delegate, commit to getting better sleep. Yes, that certainly does. Meditate. And obviously, in a group and as a coach, you can encourage people to put a date and a time by when they're going to do that by, because that's a way of really getting that commitment in there. And yes, so if someone's asking, would you send this exercise in advance for one-on-one? Yes, for one-on-one you could do, then they have something, especially if you send it out as a tool, people can complete it beforehand, but you don't need to. So lastly, this can also make great homework with your clients as well. So you can do this exercise, and then you can online, and then you can ask people to think of an action for every item on their stress wheel as homework. So you can send people away from a group interaction with some homework. Just going to, oh, my space bar. There's my, what do you notice? And then now choose one action. So I think, I don't know if anyone has any questions before we move on to the next slide with Jennifer. We have some great actions there. I'm going to pass to Jennifer.
Yeah, well, thank you. So we're coming towards the end of the call. You know, some best practices that have really emerged in this last year is, you know, what are you doing to, one, help people integrate their learning? You know, that is actually at the heart of experiential processes. And I say that, you know, whether I used to lead, and I started out as an experiential educator in 1987, leading professionals, youth leaders through Algonquin Park, which is a provincial park nearby. And I wore my paddle today because I used to take people out into the wilderness of the park. Part of the experience was actually doing a solo overnight. So it was all about leadership and figuring out who you were, becoming more self-aware of your strengths as well as the blind spots that we have as leaders. And so today we're going to use a little pause here to really look at journaling, right? We've covered a range of different things, and learning would not be complete without a pause to help you anchor in your learning. The way learning goes, again, we've created new mental models. There might have been things that you knew, new things. We want to now help you really move from, you know, those people walking through the brain into something that you will be able to action as you move forward. So a final journaling exercise, at least for me, is what's the one thing you're going to do differently based on your learning today? What's the one thing you will do differently based on your learning today? I want you to take a note of it, and it doesn't have to be a thing. It might be, I've realized we need to slow it down, or I've realized that it's really important to check out what's activated and what tools I have available on Zoom. Just take a moment to note that for yourself. If you'd like to share that, of course, it's great, because part of peer learning is about hearing and seeing what others are doing. So I'm glad that we've sparked people's ideas. Experimentation is really key in this space, because you know what? It doesn't matter if you've done this once or 100 times, it's never going to work like you think it will, right? Technology happens to experienced and inexperienced people, and that's just part of this process. So at least from my perspective, I hope that you've gotten sparked by a couple of ideas, thinking about what you're going to do differently today.
Yeah. There's some great responses in the chat here. People have, you know, slowing down, organizing their tools, taking a Zoom course. And I know I wrote down, thinking about my audience. I was really made to think about, with the window and those comments about looking out of the window, you know, thinking about your audience and any inequalities that might be there, and just being aware of that. And slowing down, of course, that's, you're a type A, I'm a type A. Slowing down, reflecting. I noticed someone said they'd love to bring some reflective tools into the webinars, and just that space to slow down. I know we knew that this was going to be a jam-packed webinar, so that was always a thing of like, we want to pack as much in as possible.
And I want to go to the 2020 because it's come up multiple times. So here's the 2020. It is really evolved in this last year as a very quick micro practice for facilitators, trainers, coaches, people who are spending a lot of time online. So what we want to do every 20 minutes is take our eyes off the screen for at least 20 seconds, preferably by looking 20 feet or more ahead. So let me say that again, every 20 minutes, to build in an offline or off the screen break. for 20 seconds, and then actually making sure that your eyes are looking 20 feet. 20 meters might be a bit far, which would be what Emma-Louise and I would be thinking, but 20 feet or maybe, 3 to 4 meters ahead. It's part of just resting your eye. And thank you to the person who put that medicalnewstoday.com article.
Yeah, about resting our eyes. I did want to say, I know it seems like we're wrapping up. We actually have questions, and then we have some wrap-up exercises as well. So we have more to share. We had a lot of questions about the 2020. And just as we move into questions, I know we did have one question to start off with, Jennifer, which is Virginie Northard from South Africa asked, what is the best way to handle private chat conversations that you know are happening when you're facilitating? She says it's distracting.
Yes, the sidebar conversation, right? So the sidebar, and actually Emma-Louise also has an article on this. I did an article several years ago on tricky issues for groups. And I think you even made it into a cartoon. So that article goes into sidebar conversations. But if we're here on Zoom, right, it's very difficult to do two things at once. So first of all, in a coaching process, we want to have ground rules, right? We want to create our ways of working or our agreements in terms of how we're going to operate together. So directly or indirectly, and a lot of that will be culturally determined, we will want to spell out, what are our agreements? And often in groups that I work with, we have something that evolves around being present, really being present for the time that we have together. So you may just remind people of that, and that can work. If it's a larger group like this, then I think we want to activate things like annotate, right? If you're in a smaller group and it's becoming very, like just people are getting so off the mark, that's a signal. That's a signal that something either needs to be said, something might not be covered, or that people need a change. And so you do want to look at activating any or all of these different engagement levers, going back to the 5 engagement levers that you'll see more of in my new book, Reconnecting Workspaces. So I think there's a selection. I hope that's useful. There's never a one size fits all. It's just about having different strategies in our back. But a lot of this goes back to where we started. What's the level of trust and respect that's getting created in the room? Because in addition to that triangle of trust, safety, and connection, in my own writing, there's like also a triangle of trust, respect, and influence. And those go hand in hand in hand. So we do want to spend time up front in terms of looking at groups. So yeah, more executive. Naya is asking, what are the tools for working in a more executive audience? Go into lots of that. Head on over to the Teams 365 blog at my Potentials Realized site. You can go to groupcoaching.blogspot.com. Lots of resources. And as I said, a lot of it is just about positioning. How are we going to position this with different languaging and different flexibility? Again, I used to work for the United Nations, right? I was a diplomat. People I worked with were diplomats. Everything we've done today works with that audience. They would come to a session with 3-piece suits on. As an experiential educator, I know that if we are not open to learning if we are closed physically and mentally. And so there might be appropriate levels of play, of expansion, etc. But we have to win their trust and respect, right? We can't introduce things outside of people's comfort zone if they don't trust us, if they don't like us.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
So we don't have too many questions here. I was just seeing there was someone, where is it? I've lost it now. Let's have a look here. Michaela, did you want to raise a question there?
Yeah, we have a few in the question and answer box here. Lisa Botwanic says, everyone is zoomed out by now. Are you going to give some fun hints to break the monotony?
Okay. Oh, actually, I noticed that was from very early on. But yes, so the hints to break the monotony, the emoticon is a quick one. You can flash up an inspirational image. Someone asked about journaling. That's a great way to get people connected to themselves. Jennifer, what would you suggest?
I think a lot of it is really, yes, people are zoomed out, and it will depend on, where people are in the world as well. But we want to bring it back to what impact does this have on you, right? We lose focus if it's all about, it's about someone else and not about us. So as long as we connect people with application and also importance, which once again takes us back to the coaching framework. You know, what's important for us to look at today? What do we want to focus on? And but also really that question of importance. And that does help move the lever. But there definitely has been a shift in terms of people's attention span and focus. Again, start of the pandemic, a lot of organizations were coming to me because of my writing with effective virtual conversations. Even then, it was not about having 3-hour meetings. You know, a lot of meetings had become micro, the 50 minutes, and then allowing people 10 minutes to rest and think about where they're going to next. So there's a lot of different things. And Karen, I'm just putting in those executives in chat. It's coming for your way. So more on that. And Emma-Louise,
I was just going to say, before we move off questions, there was one about how to deal with participants that can't activate their cameras. I mean, there's internet quality, not comfortable with their background, and how to engage them.
And to Sue's point, you know, people need to be able to say no to Zoom. A lot of it will depend on what your context is. Some places are reopening, but as I said, Toronto, we're still in lockdown for another 2 or more weeks. Like, it is not feasible to bring people other than essential workplaces together. So unless we want to move to an asynchronous communication style, which is something we covered recently at the Remote Pathways podcast, that's another way of working, right? Which is yet another option, but it has implications for paradigms. It has implications for leadership. It also means that people need to be empowered to work on their own, right? And that's been an interesting dynamic shift, which connecting workspaces I explore. So
yeah, I was just going to say that again, just because they don't have their cameras active, I mean, you have to trust that they're doing what you ask them to do. So that, for example, the wheel of stress or that heart sing, I mean, they can just, even if they're on the phone, if they're not visual, they can still draw and interact. They can still journal. They can still hopefully use the chat. If they're on the phone, they can't use the chat, I guess. So then that does make it a little bit more challenging, but then it's not so much a group as a presentation and a webinar. So I think most of the stuff today would work if someone didn't have their camera activated.
And I would say absolutely, right? We want to send things out in advance. Just think back, you know, I led groups for many years that were phone-based. You know, all my early work as a coach was phone only because that's all we had. Then in 2010, we went into Skype as WebEx, and all of those other platforms really came into being. You know, I've been on Zoom since 2014. So we want to also look too to accessibility. And I know even for me in Canada, when I go 2 hours north of where I am right now, accessibility becomes an issue. I was working out of the north yesterday, and there were certain things that I just can't do on my connection up there that I can do down here.
Internet's too slow.
It's too slow. Yeah, definitely too slow.
Okay, we're going to move into wrap-up exercises, and we're going to do a quick exercise, quick engagement exercise, which is just to type yes into the chat if you think wrap-up exercises are important. So it's funny, when I first saw this exercise done, this little engagement thing, I thought, you know, oh, typing yes into the chat, no one's going to do that. And I just saw the chat explode with ha ha, yes, yep. And then we had yes in capitals. And I'm like, oh, because it just gets us engaged. It gets us engaging our bodies. It brings people together. So the simplest, easiest engagement exercise, type yes into the chat if you think yes, or if you agree. So that's a quick one. So as we see lots of yeses rolling in the chat there, wrap-up exercises are a great way to solidify people's learning, to bring people to a confident close so we don't leave them hanging. And I'm going to start us off with something I call the rear view mirror exercise. There's a little fun one there. I found that, I thought you might enjoy that, but the real image for this exercise is here. So I want you to imagine that you are in a car and you're driving away from this session. Just imagine. And as you reflect on everything you've learned in this session today, you take a look in that rear view mirror. What is the most powerful image you see reflected in that mirror? So it could be a sense of something. It could be a personal learning, a commitment you've made to yourself, something you plan to do. It could be an inspiration, anything at all. Don't force it. Just let an image form or pop into view. So I'm wondering what you see in your rear view mirror. If you could type that into chat, it would be great. Okay. So we've got Eureka, cards, visualization cards, clarity, myself smiling, I like that, blue skies, limitations, engagement, balloons, oh, balloons from earlier, rainbow field visual. So it's interesting what people take away, the wheel of stress exercise. So many great practical tools for my tool belt, lots of sunshine and happy faces, and wonderful. So you can all see what people are typing there. Oh, one word journaling. That didn't come up, but someone obviously had that idea. So usually I would ask people to verbally share this image. If we're in a smaller group, if you want to use this in smaller groups, you can ask people to verbally share that image if your group is kind of small enough, up to 15 people. And if you have more than 12 to 15 people, you could divide people up into breakout groups and get them to share their images with each other. And in a webinar, obviously, we can do what we just did, which is to share your image in the chat. So that's one lovely, I love this wrap up exercise because you never know what you're going to get. And you just allow the subconscious to pop something up there. And Jennifer has another wrap up exercise for us.
So I'm going to just leverage off of what Jenny Pan said, gratitude. And right, we remember the start and end of things. So how do you want to leave your group? How do you want to start your group and how do you want to leave your group? And Emma-Louise and I both want to thank all of you for spending time out of your busy day to really not only learn for yourself, but learn so that you can pass it on to the people that you serve, your clients. So a quick exercise as a coaching wrap up, of course, is doing what's the one thing you're thankful for? What's the one thing you're grateful for? You may also be able to, if you're working in a group or a team, build out longer time so that group members or team members can also share their gratitude to each other. So again, we want to thank you. It's always a pleasure to come and spend a little bit of time here at the Coaching Tools Company. I get to move across the coaching industry every day, but this is such a great community. And we want to say thank you. So again, in terms of your gratitude, what is it that's going to put this into practice? You know, what's one thing you're thankful for? Not necessarily out of our own session, but like, what are you thankful for at this moment in time? You can definitely share that with us. And, you know, generosity, it's two-way, right? It's back to that trust, safety, and connection. If you give in this profession, you will get back. And so much of it is, you know, helping coaches do better work. That's really important in this moment in time for all of us in our work. So Emma-Louise, I think that's all I wanted to say on the thing.
Yeah, I'm just enjoying watching what everything's grateful for in the chat. So as we wrap up, I really wanted to just sum up, you know, throughout this webinar, we have used a lot of images. We used cartoons for laughter and humor early on. We used those inspirational images. We used images for the audience to engage with, the icons or choosing that image that Jennifer put up there. We used screen sharing. We used camera sharing, used our cameras. We used our imagination and visualization. We did a grounding exercise. We did some actual tools and exercises. We did some journaling. We heavily used the chat box, which is so useful when you're doing a webinar to a lot of people. And of course, the Q&A box. And then we used a couple of the webinar features too, which was the whiteboard and polls. And there are so many more things you can do and that we decided not to include in this webinar. It was hard to decide what to include. And whilst it was jam-packed, we also hope it was super engaging and fun and that you've taken away lots of ideas. So connecting with us, Jennifer, would you like to share a little bit about how you'd like people to connect with you?
Yes, well, as always, you know, people who are interested in group coaching, head on over to groupcoachingessentials.ca. I'm always open to setting up a 15-minute call with people. You'll see my link there. But the project I'm most excited about, which I think has real relevance for all of you today, is a book I've been working on, not just for the last few months, but actually since Effective Virtual Conversations came out. And that book is called Reconnecting Workspaces, Pathways to Thrive in the Virtual, Remote, and now Hybrid World. And it really is a rich, I'm calling it the tome, only because it covers teamwork and leadership practices, everything from emotional intelligence to really hosting effective meetings. in the virtual, remote, and hybrid world. And I do believe that that's where we're going next. It's going to look very different in every part of the world. But for those that are interested, scan the QR code, because on June 15th, hopefully, should everything align, my next book will be available on Amazon. And you'll have that around the world, wherever you are, either in Kindle or in hard copy. In lead up to that and post-launch, I will be doing a series of reconnecting workspaces, everything from challenges to equip you with tools, as well as training up a whole army of coaches, because right now the world needs us. I said this 6 months ago when I was last here in November, but the world really needs our skills to reconnect, come together, whether it's on a one-on-one basis, whether it's with groups, or whether it's with teams. And as you heard, my mission really in the last 2 years has been to impact 750,000 people in the remote space. I had no idea at the beginning of 2020 how that would ever come to be, but I'm getting close to that number after a year and a half. So join me in really the conversation as we go to reconnect workspaces. I want to say, Emma-Louise, thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for being here, Jennifer. So I was just going to encourage, if you haven't signed up for our Coaching Tools Company newsletter, to go and do so. I would love to have you on our list. That way you get to hear about things like this. And for those of you that haven't already, I'd love for you to sign up at myfiercekindness.com. It's personal. This is business to what we call B2C. It's not supporting coaches running their business. It's supporting individuals in being more fiercely kind in their lives and being happier. So if you sign up for my newsletter, there's a 3-month resilience map and planner, which will help you set simple goals, stay strong, and find your focus, and also have some fun. Just narrowed down to manageable 3-month chunks. So that's my latest venture, and I'm just hopeful that people will follow me over there. It's very early days, as Jennifer mentions. It's just a blog and a newsletter at the moment, but wait me and give me a couple months, and it's going to be big. So I think it's thank you time. A huge thank you to you, Jennifer, for co-presenting with me today, and for just for everything that you bring to the coaching world. A huge thank you to Michaela for her support, and couldn't have done it without you, Michaela. Thank you. And also a thank you to everyone for participating today, for not only coming onto the call, but for your generous sharing of yourself. Just without that, this webinar would not have been nearly as fun and engaging. So thank you to everyone for participating. For those of you who've asked, absolutely, there's a recording. I've saved the chat several times, so we will be including the chat on that page with the recording, and the slides as well will be going out with that recording. So watch for that email from Zoom tomorrow, and that will have a link to that page. So I just wanted to include a little ending here, just to firm up the ending. As we each contemplate our next webinar or online group coaching session, I'd like you to remember this quote from Wajdi Muawad, and hopefully I said that right. It is not important to be successful at what you undertake, but rather to undertake what you'd like to succeed at. So stop worrying, go and make mistakes, and have fun with your online groups and webinars. And as a wrap up to the webinar, even though I know we can't see you, you can see us. I'd like everyone to high five the camera. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I look forward to getting the recording out to you.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye. Thank you, Emma-Louise.
Thanks, Jennifer.